I speak with Program Manager Nik Molnar about his new baby, Visual Studio Online. Learn who it is for, why it was created, and why it is amazing, and all the various use cases it works in. Pair programming on airplanes, anyone? As an added bonus, Nik explains everything with a hint of childlike wonder. Enjoy. First question, what is it, and why have you created Visual Studio Online? Like, where did this need come from?
Yeah, so what it is Visual Studio Online is an Azure service specifically for developers. It's a compute-oriented service to basically shrink wrap your development environment and all of the things that entails, from your source code to the runtimes that you need, the debugger, your editor, your extensions for your editor, your config, right? All of that stuff that you have to tinker with and set up on your machine the first day you join a new company or you start a new open source project and you spend a few hours getting that set up. We shrink wrap all of that for you and deliver it to you in about 60 seconds. And then give you the ability to connect to it from Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio IDE in private preview. You can sign up if you want to use Visual Studio IDE. Or our browser-based editor that's powered by VS Code. We were here, many of the employees were here setting up the conference, right? And Wi-Fi wasn't quite set up yet, so I'm on my computer using a hotspot from my phone, so I had pretty crummy internet. And I'm getting a ping from my director, and we were going to practice a demo that we were doing together. And so I spun up an environment. I live shared it with her. So we're both using the environment at the exact same time. I see her cursor, she sees mine. We're debugging together. We can see the app together. And I said, "Where are you? Where in the convention are you?" "Oh, I'm on the airplane flying in from Seattle." So she's 10,000 feet above the ground. I'm hotspotted onto a phone. We're connected to a remote environment. Neither of us had Node installed, and we were pair programming on a Node environment in the cloud. It's a compute-based service, right? So when you start to create an environment, we provision a VM for you, and we put a container on that VM. That container is completely customizable on a per project or task basis. So if you want a different version of Linux, you can do that. If you need to install a different version of a runtime, you can do that. Whatever tools you need upon it, you can go ahead and do that. So that's kind of the compute. We mount a premium SSD drive onto that storage, so you have a really great I/O experience. And then we have all the networking from Azure, and we find typically that networking is better than what you have on your Wi-Fi on your laptop. So NPM restores are really fast.
Or if you live in Australia, you have no internet.
Yeah, exactly, if you're in the sticks. And so then what we do is using either the browser or the extension for Visual Studio Desktop, we use Azure Relay to connect those two things together. And in these two scenarios, I'll put Visual Studio IDE aside for a second because it's a little bit of a different implementation. We're both technically and philosophically extending the Visual Studio Code remote development tools, right? So the SSH tool or the Docker, the WSL, we're kind of another one, like so the threesome becomes a foursome and allows you to connect to these environments that are managed. So that's kind of how it all kind of comes together. For Visual Studio, it works in a very similar way. Some of the networking connectivity bits are a little bit different, but I mean, if I was to draw an architecture diagram, it would be a different label on the same line.
All right, okay, that makes sense. So what do I pay for? I pay for the VM that gets spun up, or what's the pricing kind of on this?
Yeah, so we bake all of the components together, because I mentioned the storage, and I mentioned the networking, and I mentioned the compute. All of that comes together in one price, and you pay for what you consume. It's kind of like how you would think about paying for a VM. And so basically you get down to the second billing, and because we want to be very mindful of what you're doing, we automatically will suspend the environment for you once you have become idle on it.
Yeah, very cool. So where do I go to learn more? How do I get into the public preview?
So the public preview is open to the public. Thus the name. Yeah, so you can just go to online.visualstudio.com, hit the sign-in button. If you already have an Azure subscription and a Microsoft account, you'll just go straight in and you'll be able to get going. And if not, we'll walk you through the steps on how to set that up. If you want to use the Visual Studio IDE with Visual Studio Online, go to online.visualstudio.com again, hit learn more, and there will be a blog post that I wrote with a link in there to sign up for the private preview. You'll be added to the waitlist, and we'll get to your number in the waitlist as soon as we can.